Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
How are you all? Welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton is behind the camera. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. And happy Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year. I've always called it Chinese New Year, the year of the snake. Pete, what are you?
Tiger.
You're a tiger.
Yes.
I am a rooster.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing that the number of suburban... You can have chooks, apparently, but the moment you have a rooster out the back, you get into all sorts of trouble. I can't imagine why. What's the point of having chickens in the back garden without having a rooster?
Well, there you go. But
I will audition. It's all right. Nothing wrong with being a rooster. I kind of like it. The Court of Public Opinion, coming to you from the most welcoming place on earth, by the way. That's us. Really. Bookings.com announced on Thursday last, based on, 360 million verified customer reviews, that we are the tops. Golly. It's amazing. Whatever you do, wherever you go in life, whatever you buy, they want you to send a review of what they've done. So I think it's worthwhile doing that, don't you, Pete?
yeah, I do.
Yeah, why not? Anyway, we're number one, most welcoming place on the planet. Then came France, Spain, let me see if I can get this right, Germany, Britain, the US, Poland, Brazil, Greece, and then following at the end was, no offence, but following at the end was Croatia, rounded up the top 10 of the most welcoming places on the planet. I don't know how you judge that. Most welcoming places on the planet. Anyway, we'll have it, we'll take it, we'll buy it. It is a great country, a fabulous country, but gee, floods in the north, Townsville and Ingham, a metre of rain in 12 hours. A metre. And there's more to come. This is in FNQ, as they call it, Far North Queensland. Heat waves here in the south, it's 41. We're recording on a Monday afternoon for air, Facebook posting on Tuesday morning. And what is it, Pete? It's 41?
Whatever it is, it's just terrible.
It's a very, very hot day here in the garage. Ladies and gentlemen, heat waves in the south and the southeast, hot in the west, even hotter in the west. However, if you look around the world, where else would you want to live? We get a lot of people trying to scramble in here one way or another, so we must be doing something right. The inflation rate is down. The worst of it is probably behind us, but the big thing is the cost of electricity. That is impacting everything. Absolutely everything we do, everywhere we go, everything we buy, everything. The full impact of the cost of electricity is being held back with the federal government's rebates. Rebates. Paid to relieve households of the intolerable expense of electricity. These rebates are temporary. The high cost remains while this government continues with its renewables policy. It's a band-aid on a bullet wound. The rebates, I mean. The cause of the problem remains. We need the opposition to spell out its policy so that we don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. We need to know that this net zero thing is going to be put in the bottom drawer, hopefully along with the Paris Climate Agreement. But anyway, I've yet to hear anything on that. AEMO, the electricity regulator, has released the figures for the December quarter. If you haven't caught up with these, this is for all of the states except Western Australia and the Northern Territory, where they don't monitor the wholesale price of electricity. It's shocking to see. I mean, it really is. It is terrible. Even with the massive use of solar power, acres of wind turbines, we've swapped all our lights to LED, Energy Star rated appliances, carbon capture, millions spent there. And what? To what benefit? Nothing. Has that shown up on your bill? It hasn't shown up on my bill. It's not possible or believable. The spike in the cost of electricity is inexplicable and unacceptable. Up 83% on the same period the year before. And of course, there were price hikes during the year. Of course there were. We're just talking about the December quarter, up 83%. Now, when questioned, the minister, oh God help us, the minister, Chris Bowen, said it was coal, unreliable coal, that was the cause. What? What's unreliable about coal? What rubbish! And did the journalist question him on his nonsense? Nope. These guys know with the media you can have a stupid answer just as long as you have an answer. The Chinese and the Indians don't have any problem with our coal. Could it be that this government and this minister and their energy policy have caused power station operators to neglect the infrastructure? Coal-fired power stations around the world are producing cheap, reliable electricity, and they have no problem doing so. Because, quite correctly, they see their role as keeping the lights on and looking after their own people. But no, we have this goose, Bowen, and no one in the media will ask the hard questions. It is simple. Let me. If we have any media people listening, let me run a couple of questions that you could possibly ask. Let me think. You are an Australian politician. You are not responsible for the world, just Australia. Our contribution to global emissions is 1.3%. Nothing. Your useless, senseless policy is driving up the cost of electricity. Have you considered retiring, resigning, Minister, as a lot of your fellow ministers seem to be doing at the moment? Or you could say, as your renewables policy makes electricity more and more unaffordable, your answer seems to be to use taxpayers' money to compensate people with an electricity rebate. Have I got that right? Is that sustainable? Or, if you want a little more coaching, could just cut to the chase and say, Minister, are you completely nuts? You know, we have to pay for our electricity 3 times. Yeah, 3 times we pay for it. Once, when this government subsidises the people who are in the renewables industry, business. Again, when the government provides households with the rebate than when we actually have to pay the ridiculous bill out of our pocket. All down the line, it is our money. Shuffled around, 3 thimbles and a pea. Just for the record, I got this, which I find edifying and frankly insulting, worrying. The EU has 468 coal-fired power stations and is building 27 more. That's a total of 495. That's the EU. Turkey has 56 and is building 93 more. A total of 149 coal-fired power stations. South Africa has 79 and is building 24 more. That's a total of 103, if my maths are right. India, we're getting there. India has 589 coal-fired power stations and is building another 446. That's a total of 1,035. 1,035. The Philippines, 19 and building another 60. That's a total of 79. South Korea, well, they have 58 and they're building 26 more, which is a total of 84. Japan, I've lost my place. Japan, oh here it is, 90 and is building 45 more. That's a total of 135 in Japan. You see any demonstrations around these other countries in the world? Any odium? Any criticism? Do you? But here's the big kahuna. China! China has, I'd better get this right, China has 2,363 coal-fired power stations and is building another 1,171 more. That is a grand total of 3,534. What am I missing? What are we all missing? Sensible government, I would suggest to you. Australia, struggling with our renewable power bills, is planning to shut down our measly 6 remaining power plants in order to save the planet. Pete, do you believe this?
I'm staggered, actually.
The big question is how quickly can we get rid of this ridiculous government that is not being held to account? And here's something else. I really want you to look at this. The founder of the Greenpeace, Dr. Patrick Moore. Greenpeace revolutionized the world and started the green movement, which of course has been hijacked. But this is the man, this is the real McCoy. This is the man, Patrick Moore, Dr. Patrick Moore. Now, I asked Pete if he could possibly get this on the show, and we can. He describes the current move to renewables to reduce CO2 emissions as a fraud. Look him up. But stay tuned, watch this. Dr. Patrick Moore, here he is.
Why are you here?
Well, one of my missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it, this would be a dead planet. So I say not only is carbon dioxide good, it is essential, and it's a good thing that we are putting some more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because it was running low before we came along.
CO2, we know its benefits for plants, but it is a known greenhouse gas, and we're pumping too much of it in, leading to global warming.
Well, actually, it may be a known greenhouse gas, but it's not known how strong it is in terms of changing the Earth's temperature. And so far in this century, there has been zero warming from a statistically significant basis, and the UK Met Office says so, yet 1/3 of all human CO2 emissions have been put into the atmosphere in the last 18 years. So it doesn't look like a lockstep causal relationship between increasing CO2 and warming of the Earth.
Are you seriously suggesting we should be pumping more stuff in, polluting the Earth more, building more coal-fired power stations just so we can make sure that the CO2 levels are good?
No, I'm not, because we're putting plenty of CO2 into the atmosphere. We don't need to do it this quickly, but if we bring it up to a higher level than it is today, we will get immediately an increase in the growth of crops and trees, which is not a bad thing. In the long run, though, it doesn't matter if we bring it down quite a bit. And so that's why I'm supportive of nuclear energy and of natural gas. This tendency to go in the rich countries to wind and solar is a giant waste of money. Those wind farms will rust in place, and there is no fun to decommission them when they either wear out or we decide how ridiculous it is to spend so much money for so little electricity that isn't even reliable.
What are you saying about energy policy now to the ideas of decarbonisation to cut? Is everyone wrong?
Yes, they're wrong if they are actually basing their energy policy on decarbonisation. They're not wrong to base their energy policy on cost effectiveness, on pollution control, which is why moving from coal to gas makes sense if you have it. But India has coal, and India has 300 million people with no electricity. What do we expect them to do? Of course they're going to build coal plants, but India is also building a lot more nuclear plants than the UK is right now, and it doesn't have the emissions of a coal plant. And China is building huge hydroelectric dams, which don't have the emissions of coal plants. So many of these countries are doing their bit without wasting all this money on wind and solar energy, which is unreliable and prohibitively expensive in the long run.
Why is this consensus out there?
Look, if we had definitive proof that CO2 was causing serious problems and we could prove it, don't you think they would write that down on a piece of paper somewhere so people could read it? They don't have definitive proof, period, in science. I'm a student of the philosophy and history of science, and I know that the scientific method has not been applied in such a way as to prove that carbon dioxide is causing the Earth to warm.
Do you think in a few years, say 50 years from now, people go, that was a really stupid period in our history when we tried to change all our energy policies to cut this gas?
I am firmly of the belief that the future will show that this whole hysteria over climate change was a complete fabrication.
I am firmly of the belief that the future will prove that this whole thing about carbon dioxide was a complete fabrication, the words of the good doctor. Not only is carbon dioxide good, it's essential to the existence of the planet. This is the gentleman who founded Greenpeace. He went on to say, and I love that line, if we had definitive proof, or scientists had a definitive proof, or climate cranks, or whatever you want to call them, definitive proof that CO2 was causing a problem, it would be scientifically recorded. It would be written down somewhere. But it isn't. The whole thing about climate change is a complete fabrication. His words, look him up. You'll find... where did you find him? Was he on YouTube?
Yes, it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Look him up on YouTube. You'll probably find him elsewhere. I think this man knows what he's talking about. He's got credibility. Would I prefer to believe Dr. Patrick Moore or Chris Bowen? There's a no-brainer for you. A huge lithium-ion battery fire in Melbourne. 70 firefighters, 6 hours, millions of dollars later. When will we learn? What is this road we are going down? And has anybody proclaimed or warned us of the real dangers involved. The good news is that electric car purchases plunged in December. Not much written about that. Funny, isn't it? There's an agenda out there. Believe me. We need to drain the swamp. What else is around? Many jurisdictions in Australia, by that I mean suburbs, areas, many of the suburbs in which we live are uninsurable. Even before we get into the lithium-ion battery problem, insurance companies just won't accept the risk. It's either because of flood or fire or some other natural occurrence. The truth of the matter is that when you look at it in the cold hard light of day, the insurance business is a matter of risk. They have to manage that risk that they're taking on. That's only reasonable. But people would not be insuring a property, well, one way or the other, unless there was a perceived risk. The insurance company is gambling, of course, that nothing will happen, and we, the resident or the insured, we are gambling that something will happen. The world is not all full of winners. Insurance is very much a gamble. I don't know how you can take all the risk.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Out of a gamble. Fact is, you can't. But insurance companies seem to think that they can. I don't know that that's right. I don't know that it's a sustainable business model to take all of the risk out of the business, which is all about managing risk, their risk. Talk to me, maybe on Friday morning about that. 0491 65 68 60. I think I got the number memorised, Pete.
Yes, that's right.
0491 65 68 60. JeremyCordeaux.com, live streaming, 3 hours, interesting guests. And, of course, your phone calls if you'd like to make one. And we come to you in this Facebook posting and also the podcasts, thanks to Andy Martin, which spring from this postcard or Facebook posting. With the best wishes of the Rising Sun Inn at 60 Bridge Street, Kensington. Call Grant on 8333 0721. It is a very old 1845 building, but it's air-conditioned. Has all sorts of modern conveniences, but lots of great atmosphere. You'll love it. Once you visit the Rising Sun Inn, it'll become a favourite place. It will. And Jim Elder Fine Art Gallery in Melbourne Street, North Adelaide, 106 and 110, two beautiful old buildings. Well, I can't really say beautiful old buildings. One of them is an old church, and the other one is an old building that Jim reconstructed about, 25, 30 years ago to look old. And he's done a wonderful job. It's a wonderful art gallery. Jim Elder and his lovely wife, Helen, you can call them if you have a painting that you'd like them to value. Could be worth a lot of money. In fact, if you go down Melbourne Street, he's got a huge blow-up of a Hans Hyson, which featured in his last sale, which was in December, and it sold for $125,000, way over anything that the owner thought it might even be worth. And in fact, I don't even know that the owner liked the painting, but I'm sure he really did like the sale. Jim and Helen Elder. You can call him if you're out of town or you're watching this somewhere else. 08 267 2869. But you can look him up, Google him. He's a fantastic and very authoritative art auctioneer, collector, advisor, appraiser. He's great. Speaking of great, I saw Josh Frydenberg on the 7:30 report the other night. Very impressive. He was being interviewed about the attacks on the Jewish communities in Sydney and Melbourne, predominantly, but basically it's Australia-wide. Heaven knows it could even be worldwide, I don't know. The points he made were terrific. He's a very, very good performer. Former treasurer. Never knew much about him as a politician or a treasurer, but he's good on his feet. He said if the attacks that were being made upon the Jewish community had been perpetrated upon the gays, the LGBTIQ, Aboriginals, Muslims, any minority group you could think of, there would have been a swift and punitive action taken by the government. But not so much. Not so much. In the last 15 months, when these things were perpetrated upon Jews, and I'm talking about the attack, Hamas, on Israel, all sorts of strange and inexcusable things have happened. I agree with Josh Frydenberg. It goes back a long time, of course. Prejudice, goes back probably when we were crawling out of the slime. I don't know. I suspect the antipathy towards Jews might go back to the time of Christ, or before that, time of Moses. Is it jealousy? Envy? When it comes to undeniable success and achievements of the Jewish communities in this country, and probably every country in the world, you'd want to emulate it. You wouldn't want to denigrate it. Now just think for a second. If Hitler had embraced Einstein in the 1930s, he would have had the atomic bomb. And he would have won the war. Funny old world, isn't it? Here's a conundrum. What did he know and when did he know it? I bet that's been asked more than once before. I'm talking about the Prime Minister and the discovery of a caravan in Dural, apparently loaded up with explosives and anti-Jewish literature and various names, targets, Jewish targets. Clearly it was an ASIO and federal police covert operation. They wanted to stake out the caravan and catch the bad guys. Now, the New South Wales Premier was briefed, but not the Prime Minister. Interesting. Why? Could it be that they considered that might be some sort of security risk? And if so, why? Look, it wouldn't be the first time that there was, what could I call it, tension between ASIO, the internal security organisation, and a Labor government. I don't know how many of you can remember 1973. The year after the Whitlam government was elected, it was the 16th of March. Whitlam and his Attorney General, Lionel Murphy, at 6:45 a.m. raided the Melbourne headquarters of the then Director General of ASIO, one Peter Barber. Terrorism intelligence information was being withheld from the federal government on the grounds of national security. Subsequently, ASIO's national headquarters in Canberra were raided that same day. Then, of course, here in Adelaide, and that was, let me think quickly, 78. Yeah, 1978. The police commissioner, marvellous man, Wonderful man. He was a frequent guest on my program. Harold Salisbury was his name, ex-Spitfire pilot, war hero, flying ace. He was sacked by the then Labour Premier Don Dunstan because he withheld what was known as the Special Branch Files, which kept an eye and a record of, as Harold described them, undesirables, of whom the police commissioner considered the Premier himself to be one. Wow. Then, of course, there were Dunstan's associates. We won't get into that. Anyway, the Premier and his Attorney General raided police headquarters in Angus Street, sacked the then Commissioner, destroyed the files. Make of these amazing but true historical facts what you will. I ask again. You could make a Hollywood movie out of this stuff. So why wasn't Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister of Australia, briefed on an impending terrorist attack? Where's the media? Anyway, I was asked the other day an interesting question. I was asked to find out why we have given $94.5 million since October 7, 2023. If that date rings a bell, it's because that was the day that Hamas invaded and killed and took hostages, and you remember, it was a terrible, terrible, terrible day. October 7. Since that day, we have given Australia, we, the taxpayers, $94.5 million. Didn't know it at the time, but I said, okay, I'll try and find out. We've given that money to the Palestinian cause, which of course is giving almost $100 million to Hamas, the terrorists. Now, I will call Penny Wong, but I don't expect an answer. I suspect it has got something to do with the Muslim suburbs of Western Sydney currently held by Labor, which they would like to hang on to. That's just me being cynical, sorry. But perhaps this might inform us all on the subject of foreign aid generally, but particularly to Palestine. Zuhar, now you spell that, you can look it up, Z-A-H-U-A. I think, Pete, have I got that right?
I'm not sure, mate. Yeah.
Z-A-H-U-A. She is the daughter of the late Yasser Arafat, or as my old friend Mike Carlton used to call him, Yasser Crackerfat. But that's another story. Anyway, Yasser's not with us anymore. He was the first Palestinian leader in history. They'd never had a leader before, Yasser Arafat. A real firebrand, took the Palestinian cause to the world very effectively. Now, his daughter is the heir to an $8 billion fortune. $8 billion. She's 25 years old. To my knowledge, she's never had a job in her life, and Yasser Arafat never did either. The fortune, according to various authorities, consists of little more than all of the stolen humanitarian aid provided to Palestine and her father over many years. She owns an entire street in London, lives in a fashionable suburb of Paris. She speaks 4 languages, none of them Arabic. Well educated in the best schools in Europe. She cannot speak Arabic. The last time she was in Palestine was 25 years ago when she was a 3-month-old baby. She shows no desire to return to that part of the world whatsoever. Doesn't wear a headscarf, hijab, whatever. Very liberated young woman. But here's the kicker. According to the UN,
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
she is a Palestinian refugee. How many refugees have $8 billion in the bank? If I don't, well, I hope I do get to talk to Penny Wong, but anyway, I might remind her at the time of some of the criminal waste and corruption that goes on involving foreign aid. Oh, she doesn't know about it already. But hell, it's not her money she's giving away. It's our money. And they've got to win those seats, for God's sake. By the way, speaking of government waste, the federal government has employed 54,000 new consultants. 54,000 new consultants at a cost of $20 billion taxpayer dollars a year. Now you keep in mind that that is on top of the already 2 million, oh, hang on, because if I get this wrong, somebody's going to attack me. 2,517,900 full-time public servants. No wonder Peter Dutton has identified this bloated public sector as an area that needs to be addressed, but no surprise that he's getting stick over his comments in the media. But he's absolutely right. The ABC says, and I quote, Peter Dutton to cut public spending. Oh, that's a very ABC thing to say of a Liberal contender. Cut public spending. Well, yes, that's exactly what he should do. I hope he's got the chutzpah to say it. But if it's the insiders last Sunday that they're quoting Peter Dutton on, no, he didn't say that. What he actually said was he would cut government waste. Show me any respectable politician or government that wouldn't cut public waste. God knows there's enough of that. Try 200,000 government cars or vehicles nationally. You know they buy 34,500 new vehicles every single year? When I say they, I mean we. Anyway, we could do a whole show on government waste. In fact, I think we should. I've got to be out of time, haven't I?
It's getting that way.
All right, well, and it's so hot. The garage, it takes about, 3 or 4 of these very hot days to heat up. When it does, it sort of holds the heat. Can I give you maybe a few dates? I did remember to bring my glasses this time. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday, and happy Chinese New Year. It's February 4. February the 4th. Oh, well, this is important, Pete. This is, in fact, the birthday of Facebook.
Yeah.
Wow. Mark Zuckerberg launches Facebook from his Harvard dormitory, his dormitory room, on this day in 2004. He could have skipped the whole education trip. The guy is so bloody clever. So bloody clever. Anyway, Mark, and to Facebook, thank you for hosting us and the tens of millions of other people you host. Happy birthday. Robert E. Lee is named the General-in-Chief of the Confederate Forces of the it wasn't the United States of America, was it? Not back then. 1865. Oh, golly. 1194 was the year. This was the day. 100,000 well, I don't know whether it was pounds or drachma or whatever it was paid as a ransom to free Richard I of England, Richard the Lionheart. 1824, J.W. Goodrich introduces rubber galoshes. You don't see many people wearing galoshes these days. You got a pair of galoshes, Pete?
I did have when I was up in the crowd, but
Galoshes!
not these days.
And where did they get the name, galoshes? Gee, that's weird. Galoshes, okay. Karen Carpenter, oh dear. Pop vocalist and drummer, we've only just begun. Rainy Days and Mondays, Top of the World. I love Top of the World. Dies of anorexia nervosa. She was just 32. It was 1983, and this was the day. British automobile and aerospace company, Rolls-Royce, enters voluntary liquidation. That was 1971. Gee, they went again about 10 years later. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Charles Lindbergh, American aviator, first flyer to fly solo across the Atlantic. He was born in Detroit, Michigan on this day in 1902. Alice Cooper, 1948, just a bit younger than me. American theatrical rock singer and songwriter. Welcome to my nightmare. Pete, is he the one who used to bite the heads off chickens?
I think so. I was never a fan of his.
No, I wasn't either. But I did talk to him on one occasion, and he was the most intelligent, sensible interview I think I've had for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, mind you. But anyway, I was quite impressed with him, but not so much his theatrics. But he was born in Detroit, Michigan on this day in 1948. 1789, the first US Electoral College chooses George Washington as president and John Adams as vice president. 1789. I got a picture of George Washington up there on the roof. Well, not the roof, the wall. Near the roof. The comic strip, Hagar the Horrible. Hagar the Horrible. Debuts in 1973. O.J. Simpson found liable in the deaths of Ron Goldman and Nicole Simpson in a civil court action. 1997. But he stood up there in the criminal court and said the glove doesn't fit. I don't know.
What a con that was.
Well, was it a different glove? I mean, the glove...
No, he stretched his fingers out. He just stretched his fingers out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just stretched his fingers. And there was no... There were black jurors.
Yeah.
There's no way they were going to convict him.
No, but anyway, they got him in the end over something and put him away for an incredibly long time for stealing back some of his mementos. Oh, dear. The American Academy Award-winning... Well, no, he wasn't. He was an Emmy Award-winning pianist, showman, and actor. He was in Batman. He was a great supporter of the Variety Club here in South Australia, I must tell you. Had a very nice dinner with him on one occasion. 1987, he dies of AIDS-related pneumonia. He was only 67. Ah, dear, oh dear. American singer Frank Sinatra. He was only 23. Marries first wife, Nancy, with the laughing eyes. She was 21. At Our Lady of Sorrows Catholic Church in New Jersey. They divorced in 1951, but married on this day in 1939. The first flight from London to South Africa departs, takes 1.5 months. Oh, God. Heavens to Bessie, that was 1920. And Randolph Hearst's 19-year-old daughter, Patty Hearst, kidnapped from her apartment in California by the Symbionese Liberation Army, 1974, and eventually ended up getting into bed with them, literally and figuratively. Anyway, we've got to go. Thank you so much. I think we'll go out and stand under the hose, Pete. I look forward to seeing you on Friday at 9 a.m. We are streaming live, jeremycordeaux.com, interesting guests, phone calls, music, shenanigans, all sorts of interesting stuff. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. Believe in yourself. We'll be back next Tuesday. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I wish you a very good afternoon.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.